as well. Having an inquisitive approach, curiosity, capacity to be with pain and offer empathy at the same time. So an emotional awareness and authentic expression. And sharing openly what has happened, what actions have had what impact on someone, and breaking the process down, slowing it down, so everyone gets heard, and being open to different outcomes. Resolution can be to separate and find safety, that unity is not the only solution. And when reaching to people to give support, to make sure that it's on their terms, that what they want matters, and to have support for people who give support. Reliability, being able to rely on times and agreements, consistency in honoring agreements. That were some of the things that were mentioned.
Thanks, Eva.
James.
And the rest of the people in my group are welcome to add stuff as well.
So, James, would you like to share from our group?
Yeah, we had some issues with Shami coming in and out, but let's see. We were answering question number 2. That's as far as we got, and if I remember correctly, being triggered and then proceeding while we're triggered does not work well, and not having direct contact with the people in conflict, or even not having contact through an intermediary between the people who are in conflict does not work well. Marika, am I missing anything? Oh, there was some discussion about the way the threads, or the way Facebook groups are set up. You have a situation where people are performing or presenting something to many people. It's unclear who they're presenting to, and so there's a bit of anxiety, or there's a bit of tension in wondering who's going to be viewing and who's going to be responding, and if there is no response, how it's easy to interpret that as being that nobody cares about you or about the issues that you care about. Yeah, so something about how it doesn't work so well to have that lack of clarity when we're trying to communicate with a group of people, especially the larger the group is. And then, of course, that the threads become a bit like spaghetti. Oh, and Shami, I think you were saying that, well, maybe this was back in answer 1, but something about how not having time, that people may want a response from us about a conflict or about an issue quickly or immediately, and that may not work for us, and so not having enough time to have the conflict does not work well.
I think
I'll leave it there if anybody has more.
Just to add that what works well is that if we can have a conversation with a person, and things are, when the online thing is not working out, and sometimes not, entering into a conflict and I have time for 4-5 days, and then I get busy in something, and then I'm not in part of the conflict. Then it's like another messiness and being in different time zones and things like that. So yeah, I mean, not being consistent doesn't work, and so there's a limitation to this medium that I'm sensing. So yeah, that's it. Marike, if you want to add anything that you shared, yeah.
No, I think that was quite complete about our
Yeah, one thing in our group, we had said that actually the ability to private message folks and to sort of as a heads up, hey, there's a conflict, or again, like the spaghetti, I like how James put it, these threads get sometimes quickly tangled, and there'll be a lot going on, and just being able to, you know, to reach out to someone privately sometimes works well. The slowing down piece is one thing that we talked about. Maybe taking one issue or one thing at a time. You know, when there's that ability and when that happens, it seems to work well for folks.
Are we still on the first question, even though I see that we've gone into the second one as well? But if it's around,
if there's more on the first one that people wanted to share, otherwise the second one is, I think we spent most time talking about that one, what isn't working well.
I can share some of that, like the second question, what's not working so well. So like what has been said already, Facebook and text, and avoiding conflict. It's not really working so well. Using NVC words in a manipulative way, or like manipulating way, so that there's a technical use of NVC without really having an intention to understand the other person or where they're coming from. Yeah. So asking questions like, would you be willing to, and asking it from a very demanding space, not really having an openness to take in what comes in response. So going through the motions. So that's a sad thing about NVC spaces. That is just as full as of enemy images as anywhere else. So there's a lot of like blame and judgment and things like that. So NVC spaces sometimes being like masked drama, that we dress it up in different words, but there's not enough self-reflection where our triggers are coming from within ourselves. And there's a feeling of like constantly walking on eggshells. So what's not working so well? More things, addressing it and being present with it quickly. So speed and timing and coordination. So yeah, the whole thing of dragging it out, the blaming, the name calling, the judgments, etc., etc. That's it.
Anybody else?
I can add something to what's not working well, which we figured in our group out. That we're losing focus and not able to keep track on what's going on, because it might get really chaotic and so many threads and so many comments. And then there is like this kind of not so good experience with admins and moderators who might say just go to another thread, start a new thread, do something different, which come through like a demand. In general, admins not being like really role models for NVC connection, but rather kind of intruding, also not always, of course, but in some unpleasant cases.
Yeah. I'd like to welcome or invite those that haven't spoken to, if there's anything up for you all that we've missed, you know. Inga, did you have something?
I think everything that we spoke about was covered, I think, for that point.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, how do we dream it could be?
I'm eager to just get the stuff out that I wrote down. So some not so exact quotations of what was said. The dream would be to have a magic wand. So there's the easy connection, safety, care when dealing with conflict, and space to talk about things. And poof, everything feels nice and soft and helps us grow in the process some way, makes us more resilient, agility in taking care of conflict. That's my dream. And what I enjoy is what the community has done to improve friendships and quality of connection with people. I was feeling disconnected before, relying on the internet for community, but yeah, feeling disconnected and getting angry and into arguments. And I have developed a larger understanding for people and their shared values and goals that makes life beautiful. And it would be good to have more of that happen. So what would be wonderful is developing an understanding of other people's needs and that they are not so different than my own. That's wonderful. And clear spaces and people to turn to. Choice for everyone involved. Nobody doing something out of obligation or because of being in a certain role. Enough people educated and aware enough to select from when finding people, reaching out for people who give support. Someone keeping each person with an overall care, coordinating all the different people involved. Someone aware and capable of keeping the bigger picture, or a system that works like that. And recognizing that sexism is a big problem within NVC spaces, and it creates not only a hostile environment, and racism is also something that is very present but not yet recognized or dealt with. There are big things to address and talk over individually and collectively. So, and the last one, not only empathy in a technical NVC way, but deep understanding of what we are because of what we learned. So an example was given of a session with a woman who had faced sexual harassment and assault, where the doer, there wasn't really a sense that the doer had understood it fully. And just recognizing that we are affected differently, having awareness of that and care for that. So empathy is not enough. Caring for practical solutions that work for everyone and better power equation. The dream is a sense of shared community, safety, and support for one another. Not only empathy, but that it extends to a practical way of living. So that was it from, and other people in that group are welcome to add.
Can I continue with our group then? What we've seen is that there is a need for connection outside of texting in the groups, and that's something which is working well. It's like having calls like we are having right now, and that would be good to have volunteers willing to be mediators or facilitators, people who are known, maybe there is a list, or that the knowledge that they are available for mediating conflicts, this knowledge should be accessible to everyone participating in the group. And that calls like this one can be organized on behalf of people who are in conflict with each other inside the group, that they can come and say, come to a person who volunteered for this and say, I'm in a conflict with someone in the group and I want to have a call like this with people who are involved, and that such calls can be organized. That would be kind of like a trial maybe of a system, of a resource which is available to every group member. How exactly those calls should be organized, if it's going to be like a restorative circle presented by Dominic Barton or in some other ways, that's another thing. But just the kind of the chance for people to know that there is a opportunity to talk on a call with video or at least audio, that would be an improvement to a pure text-based communication. There is anything someone from my group would like to add to this?
So I guess our group didn't go into the third question. So did you go into it, James and Marike? No.
No, we didn't go into the third question at all yet.
So should we give a brief here, Tina? Just maybe not getting into details too much, but just a summary of what we think is going to work.
So you wanted me to talk about the third question, what we did in our small group?
Oh, did you you want to share about your responses in your group? Yeah.
Eva was in my group,
Okay.
and so she pretty well covered it. We talked about the trans.
What I was saying was that we didn't do our third question. So is it okay if we share it now, me, James, and Marike, briefly? You know, what is our opinions about the thing, the third question?
Oh, do it in this big group.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'd say yes.
Great. So I can begin. For me, what would work is like having a system of online calls. Like, you know, there's another like emergency button we can click. You know, that okay, now it's not working out. We can have this option also, and then having an agreed system and people educated in that system, in these groups. So yeah, no, so there is a facility for those who want. There's information about it, and it's not that everybody needs to be knowing fully about it and they have to go through workshops, but okay, this is available and it's messy, you can start it. That's one. And like an option to call a circle. What I think could also be like some people who are willing to be mediators, there's a pool of mediators in each group, who could be offering themselves, and depending on the availability that time, whether they're there or not. So we see who are willing to mediate, and probably who have some skills also or experience. They can write down what is their experience and something like that. And also, it's very important for me that facilitators should be from the same community, whoever is the group, and not to bring in facilitators from outside, because I have tried it out on such online conflicts, and the outside facilitator didn't really understand what was happening, and plus they didn't have the time for it. So those who are suffering, they are the ones who facilitate, because they have stakes in it. And other thing is that like a kind of a barefootism, like a wanting barefoot facilitators. We don't need to have experts who have to be really cool in restorative circles and who know a lot of nuances, and so yeah, some basic knowledge, and they can start facilitating. Yeah. So having barefoot facilitators. Yeah, that's it. Marike or James?
Yeah, thanks, Shami. I support everything that you just said. I'd like to add that I don't know what that was, but I'd like to add that yes, I'd like the system to be strong and something that people enjoy doing. I'm thinking of it as almost like something that is it's kind of like an integral part of the community, that it's almost something that is done for fun rather than as something that is it's like has to be dragged out from the closet, to deal with a big problem, and it's all unpleasant, but that actually somehow that people see the value and the joy in attending and holding the conflict, because they see how it is bringing us closer together or helping to build stronger bonds and relationships and learning for everyone. So whatever the system is, I'd like it to be something that people enjoy engaging in. Maybe not every aspect of it, because probably conflict will be uncomfortable at times, but that contributing to it can also be a joyful experience. I want to just second the points about the facilitators being from the community and the facilitators being barefoot or being not skilled, but being invested and willing to try it. And just to finish by saying that something doable, because I think when we talk about how would it be in the ideal situation, I'm a little scared that we get thinking that it's an impossible thing, that, oh, it's ideal, so it's just a pipe dream. But actually, I want our ideal situation to be something that's very readily available, that we could do immediately, and that it's real and practical, has practical applications for us immediately, rather than just a fantasy. And I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Marike?
I'm sorry, I dropped off. I just came back and I haven't really thought about it. So I don't know if you already shared, but I would like to listen to someone else if they have something to share yet.
Okay.
How about we move into the goodbye groups, make a closing check-in.
That works.
Yeah.
So how long should this be? We have another 18 minutes now.
What did you say?
How long should this breakout room, this session be, the checkout be? And then we come to the bigger circle and maybe people can just share 1 or 2 words, or we just do a...
Maybe like 8 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
8 minutes is good.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. Good. All right. James, are you there? All right. I think Marike hasn't come. You're muted probably.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So the prompt was it just a closing goodbye?
Yeah, like a checkout round.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy that we had this what I see as kind of an initial conversation to begin talking about systems, and I'm glad that people came together to offer it. I think it has to be part of ongoing discussions in order to really put into place the kinds of solutions that would allow us to meet some of the goals that were brought up. So I'm hoping that there will be more ongoing discussions like this. I was a little disappointed that I didn't have more opportunities to interact with other people on the call. And yeah, generally, I think the more that I'd like to say about systems and possible systems that we could build. So I hope that even in addition to these calls, there's a different format, some kind of format where we can talk or write about those things. Writing is a big part of the way that I like to express myself. So I'm hoping that others will be interested in having those more in-depth discussions about what systems we want to build together. And it's good to see you, Shami, and I appreciate the effort that you put into making this happen.
Great. Yeah, I can start with it's good to see you. And I'm not sure whether you are in Brooklyn or you're in the other place. But I was trying to see which room are you in. So anyway, and yeah, I think what I would have wanted us to spend more time on the bigger group. I agree with you. And so we were having different conversations when we were planning it, and different opinions were there. So we thought, okay, like this question of like, I like one Mickey's line that there is no decision which does not have an unmet need. So when we chose this like smaller groups, and I was also bringing it up that yeah, if we choose smaller groups, we are gonna lose connection to the bigger group. So it's not that depth is the only thing that can happen. So I'm glad that yeah, like in the third round we shared with everybody, and I felt a more of a connection. And so there's a certain intentness, when we listen to each other and how we get impacted. So, and plus the technology of breaking out and then coming in, and this. Yeah, so I mean, we tried this, and maybe I think next call, and since we don't have a plan, the idea was that okay, let's do this call, and then those who are hosted will take a call on how do we go for the next one. But I think next one probably could be a call around like shaping something more concrete. And yeah, I just had one of the inspirations for this call was I had a chat with Dominic Barter because there was some other conflict happening in our community also, and I wanted his advice. And he said something interesting that this part of that, because we had maybe in our community, Laura facilitated our circle, and after 3 circles, she felt that it's not working. But I knew it was working. So he pointed out that because she would not know the nuances of your community, and she will not be invested, so she won't continue much longer with it. So that was a big learning. And also he said that just because, one interesting line, that just because we don't have good food, that doesn't mean we will stop eating. So because hunger is not an option. What he said meant was that just because we don't have a system to deal with the conflicts, which is good, it's not that we will stop having conflicts. This is like, this hunger is not an option. Like not living without conflict is not an option. So if we really want to have good food, then we have to create systems for how do we make good food, So I like his analogy around food, which is also something I like, seeing the systemic part. So, and I was also glad to see you, and I wish you could have shared more on or something that you wanted to, because we had a lot of breakout issues, that you had your knowledge on systems and all. So yeah, I mean, yeah, not having a systems blindness or something. So anyways, I've said a lot of things. Hearing me, if you want to add anything more to the checkout, go ahead. Or anything that
Yeah, I want to add. So, we've been some people on this call: David, Marika, Eva, and Inga. We've been, having conversations about building systems and having live conflict and structures for the call that work. And we've been experimenting with things that have been working well. And so I think we wanted to have something like a live a webinar, live conflict webinar, and then you guys posted this, and we thought this is a good beginning for us to join this call to see how this goes and to have discussions with you. And then we also want to host a call, something like that, so that I think in the near future we can do that, and it'll be interesting to see how maybe we can structure it a little differently and have different experiences with the different structures, and hopefully work out what we all like, and maybe have regular calls with different options.
Stop you for a moment, just to let you know that I'm now sending the message to close all rooms, and then we'll continue. I can continue to hear you, so it doesn't like disturb your flow. Yeah. So you were saying that
yeah,
webinars, and it sounds really cool to me also, that having different alternatives of different options and different people taking initiatives. And
exactly. I think that the people in the NVC Witness group are more open to live conflict and welcoming it, even when it's challenging. So I have some hope about that group being a receptive place for exploring ways to do that are working. And I know it's been a difficult road for people, but it seems like it's moving in a constructive direction.
And this year, like, be tension oriented and like not solution oriented in Holocaust, especially like So right now there's so many, like there have been tensions around, conflicts and how do we deal with it in such groups. So it's time for us to like find ways, so.
I think, yeah, everybody's coming back.
Great.
So it looks like we lost some people.
We lost
Divya.
and
And
Marie.
Mareki?
Yeah.
Mareki? So I heard, and I thinking in our small group, but I think also in this larger group, there's a want of continuing this conversation. It sounded like this really is, we were I think the three of us, Shami, Mila, and myself, we're just holding this as a beginning, as very preliminary, just kind of starting to explore the possibilities. So I'm wondering if other folks are up for follow-on calls.
Definitely. Yeah.
Good.
Yes, me too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, cool.
So do we have some checkout where people popcorn, maybe a few words or one line things, or I don't know what's the plan.
let's do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. So I can start. I think in our group it was me and James, and I think we both agreed on the, having a sense of connection with a larger group, and so having breakout rooms, that also works, but maybe another call we would want, at least I can say about myself that having moments where we share and everybody listens, so we all impacted and hear the depth of everybody's listening, their voice and their gestures and really their intentness with each of us. So that's also one option which is can be fun. So that's what we were sharing, and glad that we had this call. Yeah, I'm done. Just keeping time for everybody. Any other popcorn?
Yeah. I mean, what was shared was this kind of that it's quite intense being in contact with other people, taking in everything, that there's still this sense of commonality amongst everyone that is on the call. I was reflecting myself on that, ending up with Tina and you, Shami, before, that we quite quickly got to a common sense of what it is that we wished for, even though it's a bit unclear what the following steps are, but one step at a time. And I get the same overall feeling from this call with the people who are on it. We're all longing for something different, and I think it was mentioned, the connection between the work that is in ourselves and then also in relation to other people around us, and then how it's a part of the whole systems that we're engaging in. That kind of thinking is there, like how we can change as individuals and change the relations we're having with other people, and then also change the systems. Yeah. That's it.
I'll add. So, Shami was saying in our closing about how we have conflict, and it's not an option to not have conflict. So, what are we doing proactively to make it easier for all of us to have the conflicts, or to make those conflicts more constructive rather than destructive to each of us? And I think I'm enjoying a kind of joke that we've had in some of us, Dave and even Ingrid, and that and Marike, that we've been exploring how to have live conflict, and sometimes we've been saying, "What can't we all just fight?" And that's been kind of capturing our kind of playfulness around making space for having conflict and doing it intentionally so that we feel more comfortable with it, and we're using it as a way to get to know each other and build our relationships and build the connections.
So, James, I'm hearing it, that's sort of the other side of the coin to the expression, can't we all just get along, is can't we
Exactly. It's a joke on that line, can we all get along? Can we all just fight? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I want to say, because I like that too, that conflict is not optional. If you've got people coming together, and whether you would call NDC groups an affinity group, or there's supposedly a shared purpose, but we quickly find that we're all individuals, and that there's going to be conflict whenever people come together. So that we're about the business now of addressing it in a way that's constructive, and that, to me too, that we'll learn something. The idea of being afraid of conflict and sort of being an avoider is just not working, I think, for us as a group. And so what can we learn from conflict? So I really appreciate everyone, being here and contributing. So that's me. I'm done.
Should we take those as the ending words? I'm looking at the time of the call that we set a certain time. I'm also welcoming if anybody else wants to say something.
I don't have to. I think I said everything I wanted.
Yeah, I feel complete.
And
so we'll follow up by text. Right now, we're not going to decide about further calls, but yeah, we'll be in touch on the groups.
And share the next steps, after, maybe we can say that Mila, Tina, three of us can have a talk, and then we can share the next steps, like the next call or something. Yeah, as just as host or steward of this, that's all.
Yeah.
Great.
I feel comfortable continuing with you, Shami and Tina, to arrange another call. And I'm also happy with anybody else taking initiative for other calls, that this is not just kind of some people making something happen, but it's kind of an invitation for anybody to do as they want.
Yeah, I was saying to Shami in our closing also that we were talking about doing something like this so that we can also maybe make an offering and move towards talking about the different ways that we can hold the different structures that we can hold these calls, and kind of alternate or try different things as different people initiate them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So let
right.
different things bloom. Yeah. Great. All right.
So will we three stay on then, Mila and Shami, just to?
Okay.
Yeah, why not for 5 minutes if we ask everybody else to leave.
Okay.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.
Okay,
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tina. Bye.
Thank you.
All right.
Shami, can you stop the recording? I mean,
Yeah. I'll stop the recording.